goodness gracious. All right, I am done. I'm going live. All right. Looks like we are live, ladies. So I hope.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Anyway, thank you for being here. Pop us a note in the chat if you can see us, hear us, tell us where you're from. And if you're watching the replay, you could do that as well. We have a wonderful guest with us today.
So wonderful.
So wonderful. We have Jennifer, J Branch, as we like to call her fondly. But before we begin, just wanted to give you a few quick updates. First, Deborah is on vacation, recharging, filling her soul tank. So I will do the WomanUP updates. We have a wisdom session next Friday, and that will be on our Friday live show. We have an amazing set of speakers. Christina Wise, she's the CEO of Wealthy. Jessica Simpson, who is a private wealth advisor, and Eva Macias, who's the CEO of Eva Macias and Associates, another financial advisor. So that will be the end of our finance and wealth, health, wellness month, and we are very excited to bring you that. We will pop the link in the chat, and now I will give you a CAR quick update. We have Ledge Day next Tuesday, and some of the speakers confirmed are the Governor Gavin Newsom, Senator Wilk also, and Senator Tony Atkins, Senate President Pro Tem, and then the Assembly Member Blanca Rubio, excuse me. And so that is also free for CAR members, and we encourage you all to get there. This is your chance to speak with your legislators. It's our biggest grassroots events of the year, and we hope that all of the WomanUP community will be showing up. So also we are, I know that a lot of you are asking, we are talking with the Public Health Office to hopefully start rolling back restrictions on showings and open houses. So we don't have an update for you yet, but we will, and hopefully it'll be in the next week or so. And I am done with the WomanUP and CAR updates, and now I'm going to pass it to Leslie, who has something on her mind.
Hi, everybody. I always have something on my mind, but today I had something that really ties into the word Sarah just used, which is wisdom. And there was a wonderful op-ed piece in the New York Times almost 2 weeks ago now by David Brooks. And the title was Wisdom Isn't What You Think It Is. And he kind of gets at that issue of a variety of different ways. He says, when a group of influential academics sought to define wisdom, they focused on how much knowledge a wise person had accumulated. Wisdom, they wrote, was, quote, an expert knowledge system concerning the fundamental pragmatics of life. And then he goes on to say, but when wisdom has shown up in my life, it's been less a body of knowledge and more a way of interacting, less the dropping of secret information, more a way of relating that helped me stumble to my own realizations. Wisdom is different from knowledge. Montaigne pointed out that you can be knowledgeable with another person's knowledge, but you can't be wise with another person's wisdom. Wisdom has an embodied moral element. Out of your own moments of suffering comes a compassionate regard for the frailty of others. He said, wise people don't tell us what to do. They start by witnessing our story. They take the anecdotes, rationalizations, and episodes we tell and see us in a noble struggle. And he goes on to say that people only change after they've felt understood, right? And this gets into that whole thing about active listening that I'm so passionate about. And just the last paragraph, just to kind of sum up where we are in the world today, he says, We live in an ideological age which reduces people to public categories, red, blue, black, white, and pulverizes the personal knowledge I'm talking about here. But we all have a choice to see people as persons, not types. As the educator Parker J. Palmer put it, the shape of our knowledge becomes the shape of our living. So with that, we're not quite ready to announce the next Coffee and Conversations, but I will tell you the theme is going to be active listening. Do you listen or do you wait to talk? And we'll get into all of this good stuff. So thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Leslie. That was lovely. I shared the link to your article that you shared
Great.
in the chat. And now let's get into our interview. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hello. Thanks so
Hi.
much for having me.
I am so excited you said yes. I know you are incredibly busy this week, so thank you for being here. I'm going to read a few things from your bio because I want the world to know how amazing you are. Jennifer has been a realtor since 1998. She is currently, and more recently, the associate sales manager for Compass. She's also an active realtor, helps her clients on a daily basis. I've heard several. Take her for a cocktail. She'll share some stories as how she helps her clients tirelessly, even in the middle of the night. So she has had several leadership positions at the local level. She was Bay East past president, and right now both Leslie and I have worked with her very closely on our strategic planning efforts. She is the treasurer of the California Association of Realtors. And also she serves nationally at NAR since 2014. I do want to say what she loves most is working together with her fellow realtors to improve the real estate profession, and something that's near and dear to WomanUP's heart, mentoring others along the way. So welcome, Jen.
Hey, Jen.
Hi.
It has been a year. And so we'd love to kick off with a reflection on the past, let's say, year, 14 months, 10 years. It kind of feels like a medley of all three.
Right.
Like, how are you doing? How's it going?
I'm still here, but at least I'm getting out of my house more.
Yes.
And of course, the gardeners decided to start right when I was starting to speak. Yay. It's the world
we can't hear them.
Perfect. So kind of going back to January of 2020, this wasn't exactly the year that I had anticipated. However, I know the first sort of official public event that I did as treasurer, I was speaking at a press conference with regards to a housing bill that would increase housing supply along transit corridors. And I remember when I got up to speak, I was suddenly booed and there were protesters everywhere. And I remember walking away from that experience and thinking to myself, something doesn't seem right. So I think the year that was maybe a precursor to what was to come on many levels. I had no idea that I would, highlight the 5 and 6 and 10 and 11 o'clock news. So fast forward, right? So we entered March and we all know what happened. We've all experienced it. We all have our versions of what last year was like. And there were certainly moments of anxiety and fear and the unknowns and all of that. Yet, we still, I know I couldn't curl up into a ball and do nothing, right? So it was making sure that I was listening and engaging with, my fellow realtors and other members to kind of figure out what it was that they were needing, and then trying to work, with the leadership and staff to help kind of meet those needs. But I think what was most interesting is a lot of folks have asked me if I'm sad that my first year as treasurer was during a pandemic. And I actually think it was exactly where I was supposed to be. And I was supposed to be in this position during that time because it, I don't know, I feel like you kind of step up into what is needed, right? And that's what a leader is. It's not all about good times and all the perks and everything and whatever. Because I mean, I certainly don't do this for a title or anything. As you both know, I'm fairly introverted and fairly shy. So I prefer to be behind the scenes, but I think the fire and passion inside of me is conflicting. And so it brings me to the forefront. And I think that just engaged that fire even more. So I'm very grateful. I'm not excited. We're living in a pandemic, but grateful for where, what I was able to do during that time.
What were some of the special moments that you remember? I'm certainly getting booed for supporting a housing bill was not on your agenda, but you spent a lot of time virtually out and about with the members and on the Friday call that Sarah does such a great job with the brokers. Are there any interactions that stand out to you or things that surprised you about the industry during this pandemic?
Well, I think it was that moment. It was sort of a defining moment of needing each other, right? I always say that real estate's a very alone business, right? We're, showing property, we're doing all these things on our own. But in this was the community of our 205,000 members that could come together, and everybody needed and wanted information. And so I think that was really interesting, is to observe and watch what the concerns were, and then also just, sharing and meeting them where they were, right? So I think if you followed me last year, you saw most of my posts on Facebook were very long because it was things that I was going through. And I knew if I was going through these things and having these feelings, that other people were as well. And then just helping. I mean, there was a lot of unknown last year, and people needed direction and guidance, and making sure that, again, sort of helping guide them to get the information that they need. And there's so much information, but it's, really trying to speak to exactly what that need was in the moment. So, and then of course, like I have my fun things, right? So like the props that I have, my famous candle. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it. My shit show candle.
The best.
I really do need a second label on the back with all the other things that happened in the year. That just sits nicely off to the side because, some days that's all you could say, but it's like you also have to have a little bit of levity around everything that's going on. And I really could not have had a better leadership team to work with last year with Jeannie and Dave, and this year with Dave and Otto. There were days when we were all hands on deck, and then there were days that we would just have to kind of laugh at each other and just trying to have a little bit of, levity, because everything was so serious, and you can't take yourself too seriously. So,
one of the things I noticed about you was, and you kind of alluded to it, you're a fairly private person, right? You're a fairly quiet person. And yet here you are. And I want to talk about why you wanted to do this and how you got here. But I remember I think it was Mia McLeod came and spoke at CAR and said, in order to be a leader, you need to be visible. You need to be out there. People need to see you. And it really had an impact on me. It's kind of like, if no one's listening, you don't have anything to say. You can't be a leader without being out there. And what was that like for you? Did it just kind of happen naturally, or did you just kind of saddle up every morning and say, I'm going out and I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm going to help people get through this?
I think, well, I don't know how far you want me to go back, but I think the very quickly early years of being involved, I don't know that I was a terrible public speaker, but I had so much fear inside that it was terrible. The
Same.
experience of listening to me was terrible.
I think we've all been there.
But what that did was it made me, I mean, I was told, like my cousin Gina was one of the first people that said, you need to do this, you need to run for this position, and you need to serve at this level. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know enough. Like I can't do that, but I did it. Right. And I think that's the part of being afraid, but knowing that you want to grow. Right. And I'm one of those people that learns by doing. I'm an observer. I have to experience things. And the more you do things, the better you get. And so that was a huge thing. And I think coming into the treasurer role at CAR, you go through a lot of emotions because yes, you do have to get out there and I'm a middle child. Like I'm like the peacemaker in the family, and I want everyone to be happy, and I want, to find consensus. And this is not a role that always happens. We have a very diverse membership with very varying opinions, and we have to adapt. But I think that that's one of the things I'm good at, and I have enough passion around what we're doing that it makes it easier to step up. But I still get nervous.
So, but as you started along the path with being a CAR director and committees and NAR, did you kind of catch the bug a little bit?
Well, okay, yeah. So there was one defining moment, right? So it was, I had just returned, and I've been telling the story a lot the last couple of weeks because it's the big, people ask me the why. And it was 2010, and I had just returned from a leadership summit at NAR, and I had started our Young Professionals Network, and I was there on behalf of YPN. And I came home and I was so fired up, and I remember thinking, like, I feel like I was always told to stay away from organized real estate, first of all, because, you're never going to get anything done because they're so big and no one's ever changing and right? And so I came home from this trip and I thought, I disagree. I actually think that we're at a point that we can make a difference, not me, myself, but collectively as a group. I think we can make a difference. And so whenever I ask really, or I need to have a really hard conversation with Cam, which is my husband, I always like wait until we're like in bed with the lights off. And then I like pounce, right? Okay. So I think not that way.
It's like, honey, anything you want, right?
Not that way, but more of just like, it's easier for me to get things that I'm not sure how he's going to react out. And so I said, I feel like there's this sort of interesting time, kind of, I called it a crack in the universe, that I believe that the efforts that I'm putting in will make a difference. And I said, and I really want your support to follow this through. And I don't know what it means. And as long as I feel that I'm making a difference, I want to keep going. And I said, and when I don't feel like I'm making a difference, then I'll stop. And he agreed. And he said, okay. And that was when Grant was 2, and he's now 13. So, wow. But at 2, that was a harder conversation. 13, it would be a little easier, but yeah, it was difficult. But that's sort of how it started. And then it just, it just grows. I remember in high school, when I graduated, I always say, like, people knew me better than I knew myself then. The teachers, you would pick your favorite teachers, they graduated you, and they would tell a story and do all these things. And they sang a song, and it said, "Give me land, lots of land, don't fence me in." And again, when I think back about that, I'm like, that's so true. Like, people know, like, you can't put a parameter around me. You can't tell me no. Like, you tell me no, and I'm going to figure out how to make it work. Right.
That gives motivation. Actually.
Right.
No,
I know.
Motivation.
The fire gets bigger.
First of all, I don't know how you remember that from high school. Like, I don't remember a lot of stuff from high school, especially Micah. graduation. But I do want to add one of the stories that I loved about you, and we're going to go full circle here, but was early on. I mean, you really knew, like you had instinctual reaction to this pandemic. It was bigger than what a lot of people were saying. Oh, it'll be fine, right? Like, and it has
8
been.
weeks and we'll be done, right?
Yeah,
2 weeks.
It has been
2 weeks to flatten the curve.
And I just remember like Leslie and I calling you, and it was like, we didn't even need to say anything. We all felt the same. And it was like, okay, what do we do to change path and keep everyone safe? And I think I know, speaking for myself, I don't think we could have had a better treasurer, and I couldn't have had somebody to work with more closely this past year than you, Jen. So I just want to give you a shout out for that. It was amazing.
Thank you.
Right. I mean, that meeting in March, I mean, it was just canceled and it went virtual and it didn't skip a beat, right? Except for the 2 members who are already on the airplane coming down to LA. But other than that, and we owe them big time. Other than that, it was very
for everyone. Yeah, that was March 11th, 2020.
Right.
Yeah, it was very early on. So we all know where we were.
But I think you're right. Instinct is what takes over, right?
Yeah.
And you just start doing.
And that is a beautiful thing that women can lean into, right, in their leadership. And so I want to come back to what you were just talking about in your path, because I think first of all, you spoke to me. I know you spoke to Mary Jane Cambria, who's listening in. Leslie had a come to Jesus talk with me saying, you need help in public speaking, because I was terrible. I mean, it was painful to watch.
It was pretty painful.
It was painful. It still
look at her now.
But it is this path that you're on, and it's not a giant leap. It is step after step after step, and just constantly making yourself better and growing. So I would love to hear your advice for other future leaders of organized real estate and in their real estate offices. What can they be doing now to create that path, and what advice would you give to them?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of things, right? So we have to always be students. So we have to open our minds and making sure that we're listening and learning from others. Again, that observation mode of watching how others do it. And then it is when someone asks you to do something, for me, it's sort of like that 5-second rule, right? Where I don't give myself 5 seconds to answer if someone asks me to speak, and my first initial is, or my first reaction is pure fear. But then I say yes.
No. You think no, and you say yes.
Yes. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Yes, I'll do it. And that's how I've had to do it. And it's like, and then I ask questions later, because I know if I take that moment, I'm going to back away from it. And the thing is that everybody wants to see you succeed. And that's one of the things that I've been told over the years, that, we want each other to succeed. We want you to be, good at what you're doing. And so there's a different level of patience too. But I mean, there's so many different things that you can do, right? So I know there's a lot of people are big followers of Toastmasters to practice with public speaking. But, I think it's what you're passionate about. It makes it a lot easier. So if you're passionate about something, it really makes you stepping up and stepping out so much easier. I will, I don't know why this thought just came up, but I remember, and I'm probably going to get it wrong. And if Edward Barrios is watching at all, he'll remind me. But when I was chair of YPN, I think it was 2012, I was, again, not the greatest. I was nervous, and I was very, how I can be very serious. And he was like, I thought you were kind of a B word. And it was so nice. And he's like, and now, like, I mean, you're so great, but you were so like, because I was so nervous, right? That I was so serious that I forgot to have that engagement with my audience. And so it was funny because I think it's really interesting the perceptions that others have of you when you're like, what? I'm not that way. And so, you know, again, don't take yourself so seriously.
I think the other thing is you've done the work, you know, and so here you are 11, 12 years later, and you can speak and be yourself, but it's not easy to do that in the beginning, right? You've got to learn the skills and then you build on that. And I think you're both example of people that I've watched do that, and so beautifully, you know, and then you get to the other side of it and you're like, I just get to get up there and speak and be me, but it's because you've suffered, right? Right.
Well, there's something to be said about that, right? It's not going to be just handed to you. You have to put in the work.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The other thing, I think it's, you know, mentoring a little bit and whatever, just, it's really important to have the difficult conversations. And I do remember having that conversation with you, Sarah. And, you know, it's not easy to tell someone they really need to work on something, you know. And Jen, I'm assuming you had people that helped you. And I still remember one of my first radio interviews, and I don't know, I'm sure you remember Gil Bordenave from Contra Costa Association. And he called me up and he said, and he was a big Toastmasters person. He said, Leslie, in your 2.5 minute interview, you used the word basically like 12 times. And that is a word you should never, ever, ever use because it adds nothing of value to your sentence. And Sarah will tell you, I'm like adamant about never saying basically because it's a fill word. And he took the time to call me up and say, hey, lady, you know, you need to improve your thing. So I'm assuming that also helped you along the way to have people that kind of took you aside and said, hey, Jen, XYZ, you know?
Well, I think, you know, when I reflect back to my teenage years, I was counting all of the strong female influences that I sort of sought in my life. I felt like, I mean, again, you look back on things and think, gosh, I must have known a lot more about myself, but didn't really, I wasn't aware of it. But I really sought other women that, you know, like when I was 15, I worked for my parents' realtor. And I remember one day she took me aside and talked to me about, you know, I was, you know, 15, I'd just come home from Sweden after a year with really no parental supervision, right? I had bracelets from here to here on my arms. I had earrings, all of those things. And she had a conversation with me about my appearance. And it was one of those moments where, I mean, I remember it exactly. I remember where we were in the office and the whole thing. And it's those kinds of conversations that you're either going to take to heart and use it as a growing opportunity to better yourself, or you're going to be offended and then hold a grudge, right? And
right.
And I think it's so important to take that feedback. And yes, many speaking engagements. And even video, when video started, like that was, I didn't realize I sweat in so many places, and I wasn't even in front of anyone. It was a camera. It was like, what's happening?
That's one of the things about this year, right? Is I will speak for everyone. Our Zoom standards have gone from here to here, right? It's like, I'm gonna be on a Zoom. It's like an hour to get ready, and now it's like brush your hair and get on, and you realize nobody cares, right?
Got the Zoom mullet too. We have the, you know, party on the bottom, business on top, all of that. I do have to say though, that's why I love this community. I think the feedback that we give each other is important, but I think I love that we've evolved as a species to focus on the person and the human, less so on what they're wearing. Right. And I think Zoom is helpful in that, but it's like, you know, people can wear what they want. It's really about their
Right.
words and their actions that
Right.
matter.
Right. So Jen, we want to talk a little bit about wealth building and real estate. That's the theme for WomenUP this month. And I know you have a lot of experience in that and thoughts, and we'd really like to hear what you'd like to add to the conversation we've been having this month about that.
Well, I mean, I would just say, I know that there was a couple of folks in my life when I got into real estate. Obviously, my aunt who has been a broker for 45 years plus. She was very much, I mean, believes wholeheartedly in investing in real estate for wealth creation and all of that. And then, you know, when I entered into the business, I think I was 27 at the time. And, you know, people would talk about retirement and you're like, I'm 27. Like, why do I need to worry about that? You know, I've got so much time. And one of my friends, she was actually a mortgage broker that I work with, and she became a friend and then a client. But we went to lunch early on and we had a conversation, and she was talking about this investment club that she was in. And I was interested. And then she said, you know, you should read a couple, I think it was Susie Orman at the time, like you should read a couple of books around this. And, you know, just kind of talked to me as a peer of why it was important to make sure you were paying yourself, right? And then I hooked up with my CPA that I had for about 12 years before she retired. She was a character. She was a straight shooter, tell it like it is. And it was great because it was the one-on-one meetings when, you know, they wanted to hear about your year. And she always said, oh gosh, these realtor clients came in, they owe all this money in taxes because they both bought matching BMWs and had nose jobs. And she was like, I don't know what's wrong with people. They need to save their money. And, you know, so it's examples around that, that sort of make you take pause and think about it. Yes, you know, as realtors, it can be high cash in, but it can be high cash out. And there's consequences certainly about taxes. But the other thing is, for me, my whole thing is I know that I can sell real estate forever, right? We all know we can sell real estate forever. But I want the option at some point in my life to say, I choose to retire if that's what I decide to do. And so at 27, or maybe I even waited until I was 28 because it was that year, I started putting money away. And so I've been pretty diligent about that my whole career. And, you know, there's been times when I forget about it. And then I look at it and I think, oh my gosh, they're so right. Like this compound interest thing kind of works.
It really works.
And so what I do when I reflect on that, I just think like, I feel so lucky that Julie had that conversation with me and encouraged me, and sort of, you know, again, it's sort of like, it's not competition, but you know, when your friends are doing something, you want to do it too. And that's kind of where we were at that time. And so I was like, yeah, I want to do it. And then everyone else around me was also doing that. And so, you know, I think that's really key. And there's different ways, right? So you can buy rental properties. We owned a rental property for a period of time. And we'll probably do that again. I've got one daughter in college now. And so, you know, that was the other thing, is making sure we had funds to, you know, support her through her college experience. And who knew that college was going to be so expensive. And hi, Kate, if you're watching, she's coming home today. So, and then we have another daughter who is right now behind the wheel taking her driver's test. She's like, don't say anything. I until I pass. Anyhow,
I'm sure she's all passed with flying colors, right?
Yeah, so she is a junior, so she'll be going to college soon, you know, and making sure that, again, you know, we can be there to support our kids. So I mean, there's so many important things as to why. You know, I always say, like, my savings account may not be huge, but at least I have a good retirement account.
Right.
Because I love to travel, right? So I have fun, but I still pay myself for the future.
Yeah. Well, that's very, very good advice. And it happens, let me just tell you all, it happens sooner than you think. You know, all of a sudden you're there and it's like, wow, I thought that was really old. And it's like, oh, not anymore. 70 is the new 50, whatever.
Or you suddenly feel like you're the adult in the room. That's kind of how I'm feeling. I'm not the young one anymore.
Oh,
I'm
right.
actually the older one. And so it does get there very quickly. Jen, thank you for that. I really, I think the health or the wealth healthness is, I'm saying that wrong, is so important, especially for realtors. And I know you're very passionate about that. But I do want to switch gears quite a little tiny bit in terms of mentoring. And that's something that is near and dear to a lot of the community here. We all have our mentors. Mine is up here somewhere in the Zoom. And I would love to hear and share with the community watching either live or on the replay, what's the best advice you've received from a mentor and any story behind that?
Well, I would say that it's one sentence, but it has great meaning behind it. And it says, don't let other people's truth be your truth. And I would say so many people tell you you can't do something, right? And, oh no, you shouldn't do that, or you can't do that, or that's too dangerous, or that's too scary. No, you know, you're not going to make it. You're going to fail. And I always say that's their own garbage, right? You gotta own like what's inside of you and take your own risks and follow the passions and don't let people get in your way. And that, you know, obviously you're gonna have conversations with people and your mentors are going to sort of guide you, but a lot of times people like to project their own fears. You know, I always say that's the judgment is when somebody is it's bothering them, so they want to put it on you. And that is something that I think holds us back a lot, because we are creatures of, you know, consensus. We want our peers to support us and tell us what to do sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. And I think when we get that into our head too much, it holds us back. So I would say, you know, you follow your heart and you follow, you know, that fire that's inside of you, and just be mindful of other people's comments, that they may not always be the best input at that moment.
I love that. And, you know, it reminds me of something that Kama shares a lot. Kama Burton, she's like, what other people think of you is none of your business.
Right. Yeah. You know, no one should be able to put a level or judge. You know, I know people always say to me, like, I don't understand how you do it. You have a family and you have a business and, you know, you're doing this, like, you know, why are you, you know, how do you do it? And it's like, well, I just do it, you know, but there's a level of judgment on that, you know, you shouldn't do this because you have a family, or you shouldn't do this because you're busy. But that's no one's business. I mean, right? As long as my family is happy and I have a supportive spouse who is amazing when it comes to that. And that's all that matters. That's the only support that I need, right?
And you just celebrated an anniversary.
We did. Yeah.
What year was it? How many years have you been married?
22 years.
Wow.
Oh, congrats.
You were a baby.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's so funny because he just put the photos from our honeymoon on my desk yesterday. Aww. And I was looking at them and I was like, oh my goodness. Wow. 22 years. Crazy. So
beautiful.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for that. That is really, you know, it just makes me think about, you know, as you go through life and you're part of a family and you've got in-laws and you've got bosses, and, you know, when you're making decisions that are for them and not for you, and you feel like you're really giving up a lot to make everybody else happy, at the end of the day, it's kind of everybody peels off and no one's going to give you a trophy. No one's there saying, you sacrificed everything, for XYZ, because clearly you must have wanted to do it because you did it. Right. So I think the wisdom in what you just said is really very profound, because, you got to be who you are and be happy with the decisions you make for you. Because if you're scattershot trying, like you said, and you're not the only woman I've heard say this, because I'm one of them, I want to be the peacemaker. I want everybody to be happy and whatever. If that's your main goal, you're going to end up a very dissatisfied person, because people leave your life, people pass on, whatever. And there you are like, why did I do all that? They're not even here, but I'm here and I'm living with the repercussions of not following what I knew to be true for me.
Well, and I think that is so huge, because what I realized, I love my 3 children. I adore them. But I, as sort of the main income earner in the household, and then the mother of the 3 children, and Cam, is a sports writer and traveled quite a bit. I was finding myself very resentful because I felt like trapped in a strange sort of way, that just what you said, that I wasn't living out what was inside of me. And I think that is sort of what really ignited that passion, once that, what I talked about earlier, was, I think this is something that I need to do for myself, not to get away from my family, but to be a better mother and a better wife. And I hope that my kids agree that I think I'm much better for it. So, and again, that's another judgment piece, right? There is a balance. I mean, and we spend a lot of time with our kids. But there's also this other part that I have to fill, because I think otherwise I'm a little bit empty. So
was there a pivotal moment and that made you realize that, or was it the advice?
I think it was when I went to that summit, and when I came home, I realized that there was I found something I was passionate about. And I think that's what ignited it.
Right. And it's so much better to replace resentment with passion.
Yes.
Even if it changes kind of the workflow balance within the home, because at some point children do grow up. And if, my parenting philosophy was always kind of catch and release, right? I want to release you into the world, and then you really do get to have your own life again. And it's a wonderful time in life. And you want to have kind of built a little bit of that along the way, right? It's a much easier adjustment.
Mm-hmm. And the good news is that the kids and Cam have all sort of found their place too within the things that I do, and have love for all of you and all of my friends, and get really excited, like, oh my gosh, is that Melanie? Or, it's hilarious. So they're better for it too. So that's good.
That's wonderful.
Before Leslie asks you the last question, I do want to ask a bonus, because we're all Peloton family. And I just asked this of Deborah's sister, who's Leslie on the Pelly or something like that. She's amazing. And she had a great recommendation for her favorite instructor. And I would love to hear what your favorite Peloton instructor is, who your favorite Peloton instructor is, and why. And we have Sandra listening, who
oh gosh,
hey Sandra.
I was like, I already know Sandra's favorite. I would say that for me, I go back and forth between Jen Sherman and Christine Decollé. And it's mostly because I don't always want people yelling at me when I'm writing in the morning. It's more for me about the music, because what it does is it creates a space in my brain for creativity. So when I'm really busy, I can't think of things that I want to do or say. But when I can lose myself in the music while I'm exercising, it opens that space up so that I can, oftentimes I like grab my phone and start taking notes because it's like, oh, I want to say this. And if I don't write it down, I'm never going to remember what I said. So I love them. And then, and I like their long rides too. So, and they're great.
Well,
So
you
one
have
of
a
my
great-
life lessons is you can do anything to the right music. And I'm right there with you. The music is everything. And Jen Sherman, she's got the 70s and the 80s and sometimes the 90s stuff. So it's like a whole hour of Billy Joel. Like, how can that not be great to ride to?
and
No,
holidays.
seriously, the soundtrack one that she did last Sunday was, I mean, so many memories. Flash dance, like.
Oh, I'm doing that this weekend. Thank you for
Tomorrow.
the tip.
Tomorrow, we're doing
Yeah,
it. Leslie.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Pretty in Pink, like so many memories. It was awesome.
So the I think last question is, what haven't we covered that you'd love to talk to us about a little bit? Is there any last thoughts or words or suggestions that you'd like to share?
I think probably one of the things that has trickled up a little bit, again, going back to my most recent Facebook post, I don't post a lot, but when I post, like it's inside of me and I got to get it out, right? And it's just about where we are right now, right? We've been through so much. I mean, I could list everything that we've gone through this past year, and we have such a division that's happening, and it's translating. I mean, we have this crazy real estate market that's so intense and so much pressure on every realtor that's trying to earn a living. And we're trying to represent our clients the best that we can. And there's a lot of losses, right? So you write offers, you don't get them accepted. And I know this is happening statewide. And
Nationwide.
and nationally, right? Yes, and then I even heard, like, one of my clients is from Australia, said it's worldwide, like it's even happening there. And I just want to remind everyone to just be kind to one another. Treat others as though how you would want to be treated, because this market will shift and people have very good memories. And it's so important. I mean, we all want to be professional. We all want, to do the best we can. And yes, our patience is thin, but we just have to remember to be kind to one another. And I think that is, that's a huge thing. And that translates to everything that we do, not just our business.
Right.
And we've got to somehow find a common ground and come together too with everything else that's going on. So I'm hopeful.
Can I
That's
just share
beautiful.
something? I know it's so beautiful, and I don't want to center it on me, but I do want to share, because you're both here, and Leslie, as she passed the Royal Senior VP baton onto me when she went on for her retirement, she sent me flowers. And on the card, I saved the card, Leslie, even though I know you didn't write it, the people wrote it, right? But I saved the card because she said to me, she said, be kind to everyone and everything else will fall into place. And so it's the golden rule. And I just love that you shared that.
Like I think it's the Dalai Lama that said, when possible, be kind, and it's always possible.
Beautiful.
It is. Yeah. And then, okay, I just have to give a quick shout out to one of our younger observer, which is my niece, Samantha. She's, I think, turning 21 this year, and I could be wrong, but she's at that place in her life where she is trying to figure out sort of those next steps and needs, I think, is looking for, what is that right career choice? And I know that she's approached me a little bit around real estate as well. So I encouraged her to join us today.
Oh,
and
wonderful. Hi, Samantha.
And I'm so excited that I get to see her tomorrow, because it's been probably, I think, 4 years since I've seen her. So she's going to be at my house tomorrow. So I'm excited to get to spend some time with her. So
well, I see a lot of real estate WomanUP mentoring in her future. So that's awesome. 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 Well, with that, I think our time is done. and it's so sad, but now we're going to roll into the weekend. I know Jen and I have a lot of work to do.
Yes, we do.
I'll be thinking of you.
We will see you all next week. Remember, our Friday Wisdom series is on the 30th at 2 o'clock this time. So our Friday Facebook Live and our Wisdom series is merging into one. And we'll see you all at Ledge Day. Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you,
Thanks
Jen.
for having me.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Jen.
I miss you, Leslie.
Miss you too.